Hello, friends. Susan Axelrod here, the Confidence Coach. Welcome to the Confidence Zone. In this episode, live at 5 today, I am honoring my mother's legacy. Many of you know that 1 year ago today, my mother passed away after only 2 weeks of having had a stroke. Prior to that time, she was extremely healthy, extremely well, extremely vibrant. She was involved and engaged in the lives of her children, her grandchildren, her community, her college, and she was a leader in her synagogue, having only recently completed chairing the nominations committee, which put in place the future leadership for her synagogue. You may remember that it was all extremely sudden. I had traveled to Arizona and she had come out to visit with me and my daughter, Sarah, and of course, my dear friend, Leela. And we had 10 days together that were remarkable and fun. My dear friend, Leela, gave us her house in Sedona to stay in, and Mom and I were there, and every day we got up and she had coffee on the porch. I worked, of course, as you know. I work from home, and so I was working every day. She had coffee on the porch, and she sat there. And about the second day, she found some tourist magazines at the house. And I guess during her coffee hour, she looked through them and checked off some things she wanted to do. And that night at dinner, she said to me, "Here's what I'd like to do while I'm here." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And so we set about doing all those things. One day, Sarah and Mom and I went to a winery. Another day, Leela and Mom and I went to another winery. And I did hiking. I took her to museums, which she loved. And we did some walks in the Red Rocks. I even at that time took her around looking at a few places for me. And one evening, again during dinner, possibly over margaritas, she said to me quietly, "I can see you here." And that was quite stunning for me. Not at that time, but subsequently, it was brought back to me. I remembered it, and it became hugely important and impactful for me in my life. Before she left, she wanted to go on a pink Jeep tour. And you can see my smile. These stories are so wonderful. I'm so happy to create the opportunity for myself to remember them and to share them with you. And so I was like, okay, go on a pink Jeep tour. So she called Sarah and said, "Hey, if I pay for it, will you go on a pink Jeep tour with me?" And Sarah was like, "Hell yeah, Nana, of course I will." And so a few days before she left, Sarah and my mom went on a pink Jeep tour, and they joined a couple of others in the Jeep, and they were a couple of mothers and daughters. I think they were grown daughters, and so everyone was calling Mom Nana, and they put Mom up in the front next to the driver. And Sarah said Mom was just having a grand old time asking the driver questions about Sedona and the Red Rocks and the paths they were taking and whatnot. And at the time that they got out, my mother was afraid of heights. And one time they got out somewhere and Mom was like, "No, I'll just stay here." And everyone said, "Come on, Nana, come out to the edge. We'll help you. We'll be with you." And everyone banded together to help Mom do something that was hard for her to do. And it was such a beautiful, amazing experience. Sarah relayed to me later, and that night she was like, "I did that." And 2 days later, I put her on a plane in Phoenix, and she flew home to meet my brother in New Jersey at Newark, and she had a stroke on the plane. And by the time she met my brother, she was already compromised. And, poor Mike had to receive her in that condition. And he called us, and the four of us kids were on the phone immediately, and all working together to figure out what to do. And he took her straight to the hospital, and we all stayed on the phone all night. And Sarah and I flew in the very next day. My dear friend and other sister, Leela, just paid some ridiculous amount of money to buy us plane tickets and sent us in. Everybody got themselves there, and we all just were there. And, she left us in 2 weeks. So it's all quite extraordinary. And at that time, it was all quite dramatic, and it was quite traumatic for all of us. Her friends, after it was over, when my sister and I were back at her home and seeing her friends, welcoming them and supporting them in their grief and loss, were in utter shock and kept telling us, but we were waiting for her to come home and tell us about her Arizona trip. And today we've started having emails and texts from people who know that it was 1 year ago that she died. And some people are saying, I think of her and I remember our times. One of her friends said, I loved my lunches with her. We would meet for a few hours and such, and I still remember them, and I have my experiences still to remember. And one of the things that we learned over the course of the Shiva, the week, the funeral, the burial time, all of the rites and passages and rituals of death and dying, was Mom's impact and legacy. In my promo for this, in my description of this live today, I wrote that Mom would not have described herself as confident. And I think that all my siblings and family members would agree that confidence was not a moniker that she applied to herself in any way. And yet she certainly did things that she was proud of. And when I would call her out on this, she would be like, yeah, I did that. I'm proud of myself. But she wouldn't have called herself confident. However, anybody who knew her would have described her as a confident person. In fact, one of the most confident people I know, some people would say. But surely endless numbers of people described her as a powerhouse. There were people at the synagogue who said, she was such a mentor and a role model for me. Even the rabbi at the temple said she was a role model for me, for a woman in her mid 80s to be in her power, in her grace, in her strength, in her mind, in her impact space, running meetings, helping lead, making decisions. And three book club groups of people would come to the house and tell us stories about her. And then the grandchildren started all sharing about how they talk to Nana, every week, or sometimes multiple times a week, or on a very regular, consistent basis. And I did know a little bit about this because I lived with my mother for a few months that year. And I saw her sitting cross-legged in the big chair in the living room, talking to all these people on the phone and just listening, sharing stories and listening to them. And so then the next concentric circle out were people who were friends of her children, our friends from high school, now grown, like we are, of course, who would tell us stories that they remembered of talking to my mother when they were in high school, learning from my mother. Even then, my mother was a role model as a mother for many people, way more than we even knew, and certainly more than we realized at that time. We were just living our lives, but she was impacting lives. And there were stories of people, neighbors on the street who came over and told us how she spoke with them or brought things to them, or, she walked on the street and she was friendly and gracious and whatnot. And it's so good and amazing and profound to realize the impact that she had in her life, to think of this legacy that she left behind. My three siblings and I are all friends with each other, which is not necessarily so at all among adult siblings. It's not required. You're not obligated to be friends, even if you are your brother's keeper. And we're all in touch with each other and we support each other. And without a doubt, we have each other's backs, which is a legacy of both of my parents. My father died just more than a year prior to my mother. And, again, countless Shabbat dinners at my parents', Jewish holidays, meals, family gatherings, and occasions that we all came together at the home of our parents and, with their grandchildren as well. So many stories, and I want to ask you to consider at this time your own life every day, the life you lead. When you wake up, what are the things that you think about? What comes to your mind first? What are you doing with your life every day? Even at the end, there were so many people who knew my mother only in the last 10 years of her life. Many of us were lucky to know her, for long periods of time. But even only in the last 10 years of her life, from 75 or 6 to 86, I think she was 86 when she died. 76 to 86, there were new people she met, people on the street, people in book clubs, people at synagogue, young people at synagogue she would write letters to. I didn't know this, but every person from her temple who had a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, she wrote them a handwritten note to tell them what a great job that they had done. Eventually it became email, of course. And I was like, Mom, I didn't know that you did that. She said, it's just a little thing I do. Someone outside of their parents need to support them, she said. And so there were many things like this that went on and that we learned about in her passing, even though if you asked us to come to conscious awareness of this, we might have said some of these things along the way. So I want to again ask you, what do you do all day with your day? What time do you have ahead of you? How many years left do you have? For example, I turned 60 this year, as you very well know if you follow me. And all the time, I think about the next 25 years of my life because my role modeling of the women matriarchs in our family, most of them, not all of them, lived a good long life. And so even though I turned 60, as I tell my young clients and my nieces and nephews and children, I'm not dead yet. With my 17-year-old nephew the other day, I referred to myself as the elderly aunt, and he laughed out loud at that. And so, I do think about what I will be doing in the next 25 years. 25 years I have ahead of me to continue the work that I do, the impact that I make, the legacy that I live every day and will be left behind when I am gone. I live every day in such a way of being and feeling complete. I don't yearn for things that I don't go after. I don't wish for things that I don't create. I don't regret things as much as I humanly can. And if there's something that I want to do, a vision that I have, then I look at it and I see it real. And I do a lot of work to create what I create, live the life that I live, and do what I have done. And underlying all of that is what I call soul connection. And even though my mother was not a person to talk about soul and be deep into the spirituality of soul living, she was a person who, in the end, lived partway between quietly and out loud. An extraordinary legacy. And I'm so happy to share it with you. And I'm so happy to use this very day in honor of my mom to ask you, what will your legacy be? How will you be remembered? How do you want to be remembered? The way you live your life every day will point in that direction. And that's the opportunity I wanted to use for my live today, to share all of this with you, to encourage you to think more, think harder, think deeper, commit in a different way, and show up for yourself, whatever that means to you. It doesn't have to mean what it means to anyone else, but to you, you can decide what that means for you. And I invite you to activate yourself, to break through any blocks, barriers, or resistance that you might have in order to go after what you want and believe that it could possibly be so. Everywhere you look today is inspiration. I encourage you to listen to people who are talking and follow the people who inspire you. And when you feel up energy, when you feel excited, when you feel enthusiasm rising in you, follow them, continue to listen to them. Get to know them personally, people you never imagined in a million years with these public lives whom you can reach via social media personally. You could even find their phone number, pick up the phone and call them. Ask them questions, invite inspiration into your life. I can't say how much working with a coach can help you with this. I can't say how much it will support you moving in the direction that you want to go. Look around, activate yourself, find anyone who is doing what you want to do and can support you in this way. So thank you, friends. Thank you for spending this time with me. I knew that I was not going to restrict the time today. A few years ago, someone I respect very much said, "You talk too much. You talk too long," and so I stopped myself every day. I work to keep my lives pretty brief because I don't really want to be imposing too much in your life. But I've realized that when I speak, if I show up live, then I am divining material that is coming either up through me or down from above in order to be one of the people to offer inspiration today and motivate people into activation. And so I may decide to just give myself permission to speak longer. I want to thank you for stopping by today. I want to thank you for giving me your attention. And I want to invite you to consider your own legacy. What will your legacy be? Shabbat Shalom to those who celebrate, and to everyone else. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you Monday. Bye-bye.